Welcome, everyone, to the captive audience. It is the 20th of May, and we are very lucky to have with us here today a special guest, Representative Cort Boyce from District 1. They actually number them, and they started in the lower left-hand corner of the state with some of the state's most beautiful territory. And I think Representative Boyce, welcome to the show. And please go ahead and explain to folks where they can find your district so that they know if they're in your district or where your wonderful district is.
Well, Kevin, great to see you. I love your hat there. And yeah, Southwest Oregon, my backcountry between Curry County, just over the California-Oregon border, and Josephine County, the county opposite wilderness. You know, we have the biggest trees, the most pristine rivers, the most rugged terrain in North America. And so it's a pretty sacred area to us. And we were the first of, the people, the Native Americans, and then the settlers. They were great environmentalists, and they wanted to protect it. And so we just feel very fortunate. I was born in Gold Beach. People are familiar with Brookings, Bandon. My district, Kevin, goes up to east side of Coos Bay, and then over Highway 42, Coquille, Myrtle Point, Powers, and then over to I-5, Winston Dillard. And my north east boundary is actually the Douglas County Fairgrounds on I-5. So it's 180 miles altogether. So I whine a little bit, and then I realized, well, my Eastern Oregon representatives, they sometimes drive 7 or 8 hours to get to the capital. So I don't have it too terribly tough.
Yeah, but it's like from, I think, Brookings to Eugene, which I'm familiar with that drive from Monique Despain's congressional campaign, where we made many visits to
Yes,
the
thank
area.
you.
And it's like 4.5 hour drive just to get to Eugene from Brookings. So I respect the distance, but I also respect the beauty. And there's nothing more amazing than just a drive down the coast, heading from Gold Beach to Brookings, and just seeing the coastline is amazing.
You know, I used to work for Vic Gattia, governor, clear back in the 70s and 80s. And I took him upriver a couple of times from Gold Beach up to Blossom Bar, Paradise Lodge. And I said, one time I said, after he won his first, I said, time for you to come back to Gold Beach and campaign. He says, Cort, that's like 1/10 of 1% of the overall vote in Oregon. But I love coming and doing that section between Port Orford and Brookings. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. So he loved that.
It helps that it looks great.
Yes.
It does, because you're right. It's not the biggest population center, but it has many of the same challenges that we hear around the state and up and down the coast, right? I mean, getting housing built is a challenge. Dealing with wildfires is I think, of the counties in the state, the one that has the highest percentage of forest land is Curry. I think I looked that up once, and it's just a very high percentage of forest land. And so when people are talking about all these issues, like what are we going to do about wildfires, and what are we going to do, to fight fires and manage our forests, really, Curry County is one of the counties that really has a lot at stake with that.
Thanks for bringing that up, Kevin. You hit two key words there: managing forest. This great gift that we have in Oregon, you could double the number of mills that we have in our state right now, and you couldn't possibly mill the lumber as fast as the trees grow here. And so that becomes the fire issue. That becomes the smoke, the degradation of our watersheds. These rivers that we believe are sacred. And the Curry County fires send smoke east to the Rogue Valley, and it lingers all summer. So the two major fires you'll recall we had in Curry County are the last two major ones of 10. And we've had 10 in the last 30 years, over 100,000 acres. And so the Chetco Bar was quite famous. We could have lost Brookings. The population was a little over 7,000. And that fire was 82 million to fight. And then the very next year, the Klondike, coincidentally, an additional 170,000 acres. And yes, you got it, almost 90 million to fight. A lot of that went into the Josephine County, that whole, backcountry there. So, when you look at 200 million, well, that's what we had. That's the amount that we were short for the Oregon Department of Forestry and the fires that we fought here was 200 million. So just those two fires, and we can do better. We have to do better, and I think we're going to get help from the federal government. The Trump administration is really pushing for common sense and logic, and it's just part of the rural Oregon reset, revitalization that Portland dominates, and we just aren't giving up that fight, and we want to mend and close that gap between urban and rural. But as you well know, that is a tough duty when we're outnumbered.
Well, and you and Senator David Brock Smith, who's half of his Senate district is your House district.
Mhm.
He, you guys put out an op-ed talking about wildfire season and what people need to know. And I also think a lot about Cam Perry he likes to talk a lot about that firefighting center that you guys want to get going. That's in Curry County
Mhm.
for good reason, right? And when you mention the amount of money that's spent to fight just two fires, the cost of those two fires together dwarfs the amount of money that is required to have a firefighting center, which would greatly enhance not just Curry County's ability to fight fires, but the entire West Coast would benefit from having a center like that. And I've heard him describe that, and that's smack dab in the middle of your district. So, what are some of the things that folks can expect to learn from your wildfire op-ed?
Well, it's a project we're very excited about. We have a worldwide shortage of firefighters, and this facility, Kevin, will be the absolute premier training facility for wildland firefighter. Of course, no better place to learn to fight in the rugged backcountry of Curry County. And so, yeah, we'll graduate our first 30 or 40 this year. The facility's not done. We've raised a total of 3.5 million so far, and we have the property. We have good water. We have good flat ground, good airports within 20 miles each way. And so eventually the goal would be within 3 years, we'll be sending up to 1,500 firefighters at all levels, including smoke jumpers, all over the world. And so it will be number one especially for the Western United States. That's why we're knocking on the door of the federal government, in terms of spending priorities for our state. That's the greatest public safety threat that we have to our citizens. And I mean, what list do you want to use? I mean, we saw what happened in L.A. The Archie Creek fire. We lost 110 homes in the Glide east of Roseburg area. The Labor Day fires. We lost almost 1,800 homes. So let's get it together, and let's quit talking about it. And I'm just very passionate about that, and I feel a real sense of responsibility. And so the fire training center is going to be a huge plus for all of Oregon.
I just posted links to those three op-eds from your. I really like the name of your newsletter. It's not like these boring, well, so and so's newsletter. You actually gave it a name that catches your eye, and makes you want to read it when it shows up in your inbox. You called it the Court Report, the voice of reason. I love it.
Well, it's what they say, you're never really as good as your resume. But yeah, I'm full time, 24/7. I love it. I feel, I just barely missed Vietnam in 1972, coming out of high school. I would have been at the tail end, so probably would not have seen any combat. But I was ready to go. And 5 weeks after I got my draft number, and it was 7. Nixon on July 1st abolished the draft. So then I got to live my whole life, raised my kids in the Rogue River Wilderness, did the tour, jet boat tour, all those years. And, nobody owes more than I. That's the point. Because if I'd have gone to Vietnam, how different my life would have been.
Yeah, and at the same time, I know nobody respects our members that serve our country and a greater patriot than yourself. I mean, you and I get to talk about this ourselves sometimes, and I've seen you, taking the time, going out of your way to make sure that not just in your district but across the state, we honor the people who serve in all capacities. So there's our military, there's the National Guard, but also the people that serve us in public service and firefighting and law enforcement. one of the best ways to honor them is actually make it easier for them to do their jobs by having the right policies.
You know, I'm really proud of how Oregon has, especially the last 10 years, Kevin, dealt with the veterans and tried to make a difference. And the more I'm involved, the more I'm intrigued and energized, and yeah, just that sense of obligation. And I've just met some incredible people. I have one very good friend that is he's a Korean War veteran. I mean, all the World War II vets, of course, are gone, but he just he stumbles around a little bit, but just a great man. And then I'll be speaking at Brookings Memorial Day celebration. You know, we always talk about my grandson Cord will be with me. He's coming down from Seattle,
Mm.
and by the way, for all of his life he was known as Half Court. Now, who do you think is Half Court now? Because he's 6'2", and
Yeah, really.
yeah, and so we'll be at
You would dominate the half court if you were out there with them, right? Yeah. Better work on your free throws.
yeah. So we will. We'll be speaking at the Brookings Memorial, and there's just so much in the way of in inviting those people to watching veterans help one another is just amazing. I'll be talking a little bit about the Bataan Death March. My father, the very tail end of World War II, was one of the first American GIs into Hiroshima, just less
Wow.
than 30 days after the bombs were dropped, and the stories are just amazing. So yeah, the veterans are they deserve a pat on the back, and helping even the Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans transition back into public life. It's just we all need to take note. And I serve on the Veterans Committee on the House side with some very good people, and just really feel privileged to be involved. And I have a couple really good bills that are doing well, and I carried one on the floor just the other day that actually two, and looks like they're going to go past the House side, headed to the Senate, Kevin.
What are those bills?
You know, one of them is just a simple little deal that recognizing license plates on motorcycles and mopeds. That was Rep. Paul Evans's bill, and he's been a little bit under the weather lately, doing fine now, and he asked me if I would carry that. My main two veterans bill are personal health navigators. So again, back to the transition, Kevin, when they're not aware of the services that are available, and so
Yeah.
part of Oregon Health Authority is just training some people to go to the vets and say, hey, are you aware that outside of the Oregon Health Association, the Oregon Department of Veterans, or the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs can help you here and there? And just, sometimes they're just bashful. Sometimes they just need a little boost. Sometimes they don't want to fill out the paperwork. And so that personal navigator bill will be a big one. And then the other one is a hyperbaric oxygen treatment, also having OHA fund some of that. There's just some tremendous advancements of that throughout the country. Several states have already approved it and are encouraging it for traumatic brain injury. And so veterans have been through that. We can help them.
Well, that's good. And I know that, the state has a role with veterans. There's the Federal Veterans Affairs Department. There's veterans care around the state. We know that our federal delegation has a role with them, but it's good that you've got the state doing what they're supposed to do, and getting them to start working in that direction, because all this, everything we talk about, we get to do this. We get to sit around and argue without bullets flying over our heads about policy and politics, thanks to the veterans who did do that. And I think it was good you mentioned Korea, because that's called the Forgotten War. It's the one between the big one and Vietnam, which everybody has opinions about those two.
Yeah, I forgot to mention it was the Forgotten War. So
Yeah.
good, very good.
No, I know. And there's a memorial in DC to it, but it's kind of an understated one. But what struck me about that memorial is that the Koreans, the Korean Americans and Koreans that come to visit and visit that memorial, what they contributed to sponsoring that. They come and they put flowers there. It's a bond that we have with Korea that I think, again, that kind of thing can go on forgotten as we head into future generations. And It's important to recount history, and you actually brought some of this this past weekend. There was Armed Forces Day. I saw that you guys attended the Armed Forces Day commemoration and had some F-15s fly over, and I thought that was great.
It was special day. Actually, I did was the keynote speaker at the governor's Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans. That was actually, I think, 5 weeks ago, but rainy day, and we had a good turnout, and just unbelievable privilege. But yeah, you mentioned Korea. We gave at least half of that society their freedom, and when you look at a free society compared to a non-free society, they say when satellites fly over those two countries at night, South Korea is totally lit up, industrious. The economy is booming, and North Korea is dark. And so I'm sorry that, looking back in history, we didn't give all of them their freedom that our men died for, people sacrificed for. But yeah, South Korea is a booming country, and it's just fascinating to be and watch history.
Well, they make these things here, they make at least half of all of our phones and a heck of a lot of other things, and so look, I think we have an industrious West, and we work together to defend it. I do think that a lot of us are starting to pay attention to how much our allies are doing to carry their end of the bargain, but I also know that we have a president that is holding them to account, and he's doing it the right way at every level, right? And so it's great actually to have from the federal level some of the issues you touch upon in your newsletter. Uh, we wouldn't have a community care if it weren't for the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, and I know that's a big deal for all veterans, especially ones that are kind of far away sometimes from the VA hospital. And I think that's very true of a lot of the veterans in your district. But then, we've got the executive orders around starting to manage our forests and boost our timber harvests along the lines of what you were talking about earlier. Like we could actually just keep mills constantly busy, even if we built a whole bunch of new ones. And instead, the trend in Oregon has been they've been closing. And then, of course, when it comes to law enforcement, making it so we don't have an open border that's flooding our state. The Highway 1 along the coast has turned into a kind of a corridor as some of those guys try to avoid I-5, where they've been under some greater scrutiny
Yes,
in
sir.
recent years. And now you've got greater attention being drawn to the need for rural Oregon funding for public safety. And I saw that was mentioned in your National Police Week that you put in your newsletter.
It's all three of my counties have excellent sheriffs, and we have excellent sheriffs, and yet they're all underfunded. And it's primarily because the timber's wasted. I don't mean to continue to bring it back to fire, but there's just no excuse for the management that we have. And that's where, Kevin, as you well know, the funding of public services in the state of Oregon is on the burden of the taxpayers instead of on the burden of the great forest. Nobody has the gift that Oregon has. Nobody has the heritage and history. And it's not only the fastest growing timber in the world, but it's the highest quality. And so I don't know anybody that wants to clear cut everywhere. They just want to, with a private forest accord, we can only harvest, and it's a good concept. We can only harvest the rate of growth anyway. So we're not talking about indiscriminately clear cutting vast parts of the forest. And so, goodness, it gets into the Elliott Forest. The state forest is 86,000 acres, and that's just waiting for a spark. Part of my politely, respectfully, but consistently beating the drum is, hey, this Coos County has not had a major fire now in 40 years, and it's just an absolute miracle. And I give some of that credit to the Oregon Department of Forestry, and now that's been turned over to a research forest. They've ignored the counties, they've ignored the tribes, and it's really tragic, because that could be the absolute gem of Oregon. And I know it's going to burn up. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I'm praying I'm wrong, but there's just no reason to, when it comes to habitat, you know, hierarchy and priorities, there's just a better way. And it's not, normal fires are good. They burn 1,200 degrees. These wind driven monsters, they burn 2,000 degrees and cook everything. So yeah, I'm on that trail all the time. I hope I'm not boring you.
Oh, no, no. I mean, I think people are very interested in this, and this is the exact time of year that we need to start thinking ahead about this because, first of all, there's a legislative session going on, and secondly, what Monique Despain liked to call in the campaign, smoke season is coming,
Yep,
and
yep.
and we can either breathe this stuff or use this stuff and manage the forest better, so that because when you see a managed forest, it's not clear cut. It is, and it's not, but it's not the kind that has all this debris building up as fuel load that helps fuel these massive, super wildfires. It's something that's dramatically better for the forest and for the surrounding communities, and it's solvable. I love how many of these problems are portrayed as unsolvable, like it's like the weather, like everybody talks about it. Nobody does anything about it, right? Because they can't. But actually, you can. It's in our hands, right?
It's such a good point, and if we can blame it on climate change or anything other than, facing the music of what we have allowed, both federally and statewide, for the last 35 years. I mean, I don't want to get into the spotted owl and all that. I mean, that's a whole different hour conversation. But the bottom
Yeah.
line is, we had bad priorities. We listened to the wrong people. We let the lawyers that made a lot of money off of slow, stopping timber sales. They made so much money, and the people suffered. Our schools are going down. Thanks for mentioning public safety. My sheriffs need funding, and we spend millions in the Portland area. We're outvoted, and we're starting to. I mean, we're just seeing businesses leave Portland by
Yeah.
the droves, and and the Trailblazers are for
Yeah.
sale, for gosh sakes. I mean, and Portland used to be such a great source of pride. When I come to the legislature from a county commissioner position 3 years ago, I thought, one of my biggest jobs is trying to figure out a way to save Portland, and I don't know if that's possible. I mean, I'll never give up, but it's just tragic, and there's good people there that can't sell their homes, can't leave, and they don't want to do drugs, and they want to live there for the reasons that they uh, you know um, why they love Portland. And so yeah, climate change is a fraudulent deal. That's
Yeah,
all there is
the
to it,
climate
in my view.
alarmists have definitely ruined policy in this state, and they've actually made it so that those policies, we have the flow going the wrong way. Portland's policies are being
It's
imposed on the
religion
rest of
to
the
them.
state, which is crazy because Portland is in no position to talk, and I know Portland pretty well, and I will say that I want it to go back to being safe and weird instead of what it is now, which is dangerous and dirty. Uh, no one wants to live in a place like that. It's fixable. Again, and I think President Trump's showing it at the national level on a much larger scale that you can dramatically change direction with policies with the right leadership and the best intentions still for making things happen. You don't have to spend all, because that's the thing. Um, Not only has this been the case since the 90s, when the spotted owl, and talk about an early form of fake news, a fraud that was put on people about how they were going to save the spotted owl, and now a bunch of them are burning up in a forest along with the barred owl that's been killing them, which they now go out and shoot. I mean, it's just like it's crazy. But and now, uh, you know, they have all these lawsuits that constantly get filed anytime somebody tries to do something to solve it. And lawfare, as it's called, is very prevalent, and I think it's very troubling because even when you get a policy initiative going where you even get both parties agreeing just enough to start doing something, and you have a governor that says that he or she will do something about it, then somebody some interest group starts filing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, gumming up the works and slowing it down. And that's a problem we got to solve, isn't it?
I'm all for tort reform, and people think might not agree with this, but loser pays. That's what a lot of European countries do. So if you want to file a lawsuit and there's no economic, uh, what's the environmental impact statement? How about an economic impact statement? I'm glad you mentioned mills that have been closed. The first 9 months of 2024 was eight, counting the mill, the paper mill at West Lynn, Kevin. And so those are dozens and dozens of families that are impacted. It's just like, who cares, And it's just not acceptable. And these mill owners that put their life into employing people and putting out a good product, and they walk outside their office door where the look is timber that they can't touch. And and you fly between here and Bend. I mean, you're going to see vast amounts of forest, that portion that hasn't been burned. But yeah, there is there's so much that can. That's why the best managed forests in Oregon are the tribal forests, and they understand natural resources. That's why they're on fish recoveries. And man, I've had some great successes there, and just learned so much the last 10 years or so. And yeah, we can do better, and we just got to pull it.
Yeah, I think there's been really heightened cooperation with the tribes, especially in fish recovery. I didn't know anything about that until Monique's campaign, and I learned a whole heck of a lot in a short period of time. And again, it's something that is common sense when you start to find out the history of it and what can be done, and people working together. I see that there was you listed as a big win, and I know I paid attention to this. They backed off their advanced clean trucks rule, which the Department of Environmental Quality was going to impose something pretty egregious on medium and heavy duty trucks for 2025 and 2026. And of course, a lot of people that live in Portland and vote for lots of progressive Democrats, they like to have their Amazon packages delivered. They like all these goods to show up in the stores for them. They like all of that. They just, apparently they were, until we raised their awareness, they were just going to allow all of that to be severely hampered by simple rulemaking.
Well, one more thing I'm glad you brought up, how that would impact our farmers and ranchers, to tell them in a few years you can't have any diesel tractors. How crazy is that? I mean, I hate to use that kind of language, but it's just Shelley Boshart Davis from Lynn County. I mean, she just did some remarkable work there, and she understands business, and she's her family has a agricultural background, and she just went to bat. And my goodness, to have DEQ back down with the bureaucratic power and influence that they have, control. So, it's going to come back, but at least we bought a little bit of a season here to protect our farmers, ranchers, truckers. We don't want any more businesses leaving Oregon. We don't want, it's just the whole, what's wrong with a electric vehicle. I mean, if you have a place to charge it, that's great, but you got to pay your share of the road tax too. In rural Oregon, they generally have to travel further to get to work or the hospital or whatever, and so they pay a bigger price. So we're basically saying, and so yes, we do categorize that, Kevin, as
well. And I think another win that you listed here is that senior homeowners. There's a bill that's passed the House that's going to make it easier for seniors to that have worked hard their entire lives, paid taxes, contributed to their communities, but then they face the constant fear of losing their homes due to the rising property taxes, which is a battle we constantly have to fight. And I see that House Bill 3712 that passed, you highlighted it here. What do folks need to know about that? And is it a sure thing, or is there still more to go on that?
It passed the House. I'm not sure where it is right now. It might have a tougher battle in the Senate. But if the Oregon legislature really wants to help seniors stay in their homes, that is one of the best bills that have come out in a long time. So we're feeling pretty good about that. We're going to be lobbying heavy for it. It had actually, honestly, more bipartisan support than I would have originally anticipated.
Yeah,
So
51
we just
people
need,
in the state house agreed on something. That's worth mentioning.
yeah. So we just want to find more like that. And the Republicans, they're business oriented. They are, we're not voting on any tax increase, not any fee increase. ODOT, they're $1.9 billion down. We found almost 700 million, Kevin, just in savings that they could have done. That was in my previous newsletter, that they could still do, to avoid raising taxes. Just get back to their core mission, which is fixing potholes and replacing bad guardrails and plowing the snow in the winter in Eastern Oregon, and get rid of the bike paths, get rid of the bridges that don't allow cars in the Portland suburbs. It's just not good for Oregon. We can't afford it. And I've come out strong, and I got even some Republicans a little bit uptight with me, but I've come out strong against the new I-5 bridge. It does nothing. It's just simple, about 5 words. We cannot
Yeah.
afford it. We
Yeah,
can't afford it.
and it doesn't increase the traffic flow through there. That was one of the amazing things, is that no plan that they've advanced. I mean, it actually technically reduces it, which, because they want to put a light rail on it, which frankly has seen a plummeting in its ridership in the Portland metro area. So fix that problem first. And once you get people riding light rail, then maybe consider putting more of it. But right now, it's just gold plated and expensive. And you mentioned about ODOT. I think it was ODOT, wasn't it, that has this huge building that's like 70% empty in Salem? And
Yep. Yeah, we had a big press conference in front of that building and just said, "Hey, you could save. I think was it 55 million or something, that if they really properly utilize that building." But that's a sign of the times. I mean, you see that in the federal government, and that's where the Department of Government Efficiency just come in and go, "Oh, we're talking." We're talking a couple $1 trillion here. We're talking billions and billions of dollars. And so Oregon needs to do that too. The missed priorities, and you know this well, the mixed up priorities of spending in this state is just heartbreaking. So that's why I know I'm right where I need to be, because I am strong against that. And so as we watch ODOT struggle, and then that can be a clandestine way to try and say, "Oh, well, that kicker money's available," and we're going to go, "Oh no, it's not. We're going to fight you tooth and nail
and
on that one too.
and I
Leave
and
it
I
alone."
and I got to say, when they tell us, when we know that they're spending a huge amount of money cleaning up all of the problems that are created by drug addicted urban camping. I mean, people call it homelessness, but that ain't due to lack of homes. That's due to drug addiction and the crime and the filth that results from it. ODOT spends a huge amount of money cleaning that up every month, and not filling potholes, and not expanding highways, which don't have the capacity at this point for the traffic that's on them. And of course, they're not. They said they couldn't plow the snow unless you got another $19 million to them. They're not going to plow the snow. These are like core things that you expect a Department of Transportation to do, and also the amount of money that they've been spending on all the woke stuff. I heard from Representative Ed Deal, it's somewhere around $100 million across all of the state bureaucracy. $100 million. You could expand a major highway
Kevin,
with that.
it's in every department. Every department, and it's going to cost us more federal money, because we're basically, I always got along pretty well with Dan Rayfield, but they did a little bit of a review, a study. I think it's 2/3 of his time, maybe 67%, has been fighting the Trump administration, and he's going to lose. He's led a fight with, I think, 14 other states, and I'm not saying Trump is right or wrong, but we have to deal with whatever administration is there to protect our citizens and do the job. And so to have our state leadership basically, poking them in the eye, it's just mind-boggling. So yeah, and they're going to have to back down, or our budget's 600 million less than what we anticipated on the last forecast, and so I'm thankful that it wasn't a lot worse.
And you're
For the
right.
business.
If the rest of the country doesn't want to pay for Oregon's pronoun trainings, then we should just suck it up and maybe say, we're just gonna stop doing it, and we'll actually fix some potholes. That'd be great. And I know you mentioned about taxes. What are some of the things folks need to know that are really important as we head into the? It's like a month left, right, in the state legislative session, approximately. And what they're going to watch? A lot of people are going to watch to see if they're going to try to touch the kicker. I saw a list of maybe 13 or 14 different taxes they want to raise. And then, of course, they want to increase spending at a time that maybe they're not going to see as much money coming from the federal level because they just don't want to cooperate.
Well, we're dominated by the Portland people primarily. It's somewhat Eugene, and that's just a sign of the times. But yeah, you always have to tax and spend your way out. I know that's an old time cliche, but it really is the truth for Oregon. And if I could emphasize anything, it's the priorities are so bad. We have plenty of money. We have plenty of money for rural Oregon. If you just take one example, this is something that people can relate to. I can give you two real quick, and they're both in Portland. We spent $3 million, ODOT did, to paint over graffiti. Back to your comment a minute ago about the homeless people. The other one, and this calls, and I mentioned this on the House floor today with a different bill we can go into as far as disrespecting law enforcement, if you'd like. But anyway, you remember when we had 17 police cars destroyed, burned up? Nobody ever
Yeah.
paid a price for that. There's another $1.5 million to replace those cars. I mean, if that would have been done in Klamath Falls or Sisters or something. I mean, you can imagine the uproar,
Yeah.
rightfully so, but nobody held accountable. And then we got outvoted to send Portland State additional funding. They should have never come to the state for more money after that because nobody, I'm repeating myself here, nobody was held accountable for those. And another point I brought up today, remember 5 years ago when they had police officers inside the federal building. They barricaded the door
Yep.
and lit it on fire. One of my sons is a lieutenant of the state police. He was there. He wasn't inside the building, but that's the kind of stuff that we just sweep under the rug. And it's, I'm telling everybody I know that all Oregonians don't leave, just stay and fight. We've got some good leaders. We're gonna overcome, and we're gonna win in the long run. But we
Well, we
just
do have
can't quit.
we do have
Can't
some
back
good
down.
leaders, and you're one of them. And we're really lucky that that you're serving our state and your district, which I really hope to come and visit again sometime soon because it's just my eyes need to see that coast. That's just and to see the river valley and all the things that uh, remind you that there's more to Oregon than the Portland metro area and the halls of the Capitol building. There's more to it, and it's worth fighting for. And I did want to mention. Well, first of all, if there's any last things that you wanted to kind of highlight that people might be able to get behind or help support, I know that a lot of the hearings and the testimony is kind of behind us now, but they can still email and not only to let people know that they might not agree with, but also to support their legislators, who sometimes have to go down there and get run over a bunch of times and still get right back up and go back into the fight and keep fighting.
Well, thank you very much. How much time do we
We've
have?
got
I didn't
several
want to make
minutes, and
sure.
I do want to mention your town hall that's coming up.
Sure. Thank you very much. Um, okay, 2026 is coming up soon. You look at the national level. I mean, we want to keep that house because we don't. We know that they're going to try and impeach the president. Kevin, Monique not winning. I mean, I honest to gosh, I mean, I've been around politics since I was in my 20s, and I really thought she was going to win. I thought it would be slim, but I thought she would pull it out. So, people just aren't engaged as much as they could be. They care. Their hearts are in the right place. They're working, paying their taxes, taking care of their families, so they don't have a lot of time for politics, but they're going to have to find the time. They need to talk to every one of their non-affiliated voters. And I mean, we had Will Lathrop, we had Monique Despain, we had several House candidates that were just tops. And we end up losing one seat instead of gaining a couple in the House. So we're at 24 now. We really thought we'd be at 26, maybe even 27. And the good thing is when it comes to tax bills, Kevin, the Democrats with 36 are down two members right now, so they don't have that supermajority where they can pass a tax, and we are, we're not throwing sand in their eyes, but we're basically holding firm and saying, yeah, this is a God
Yeah.
thing, that to keep them from passing any taxes. And so far so good. Yes, with 5-6 weeks to go, every day we're going to be on the House floor. I've only missed one vote in this whole 5 or 6 months, or excuse me, 3 or 4 months
It
for the
seems like 5 or 6
6 months.
months, but it's only been 3 or 4,
Yeah.
right?
But we do have some great people, and I'm hoping Christine Drazen will run for governor again. I think we have Bechtel from the Marion County Commissioner. I think would be good. Bonham would be good. It's just who has the best chance of winning. That's what I'm looking at. And so yeah. And hey, you want to come to Rogue River? I will get you 2 tickets. I'm actually going to be on the river the next 4 out of the next 5 Saturdays. So I've only been home twice. It's an 11-hour round trip drive, but twice since the middle of January, and or once, excuse me, once. So I'm going home. I'm going to get on one of the Jerry's boats and run people up to Blossom Bar in the wilderness, my old lodge at Paradise. And Jerry's just they've made it too easy, but I'll be on the river. I'll come back Salem each Sunday night, really in a good mood. So
Oh,
I'll
that
get you
sounds
an
great.
invite.
That sounds great. And yeah, and you're right that 2026, there's some battles ahead. And if people focus on what's going on in Oregon and what's not being done right, and how much money is being spent and what's happening with their taxes, and frankly, the cost of living is going up, even though at the federal level, President Trump, I think, is doing a lot to start dealing with the economy and get some of these issues that have been driving inflation up. He's been working on that. In Oregon, it seems like they want to keep increasing our costs by imposing more rules and regulations and fees. So the 2026 is going to be about making sure your neighbors know what's going on. They might tune it out, but it's affecting them right where they live. And by the way, one of the ways that people can find out what's going on and also share with you how they feel about the policies in the state is attending one of your town halls. And you have you've got a virtual town hall this Thursday, May 22nd, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And so anybody who really wants to hear what you and Representative Mark Owens has to say about what's going on, I guess you'll be doing it from the Capitol, right? Um,
I'm going to be I'm going home Thursday night, but I'm going to, my wife has found me a meeting place in Coos Bay, and my staff has got me all lined up, and I'm going to do it right
that's
like we're
great.
doing now. And then I only have another hour and a half to go home. I'll be on the river, those 2 days, and get a little bit of rest, spend time with my grandson, do the Brookings Memorial deal, and the big Azalea parade. Anyway, I'll be quite busy, but looking forward to that. And so, yeah, we're District 1 and District 60, the
The
Northeast
bookends.
and the bookends, the Southeast. I'm sorry, the Southwest. Well, I'm still can't spit it out. Southeast and Southwest corners of Oregon. There, I got it.
Yeah, you actually can technically claim to represent the entire state by representing the two ends, and you care about what everything is in between. And I just posted the link for folks that want to register for that. We do have folks that follow us all over the state, um, and I also want to say that if anybody wants to go, and I think that it's good for folks to check out your speeches. You've got the 50 quick links here. I'm going to post that because I think that gives folks a quick way to get to all of these bills that are bouncing around, what people need to know, who's working on them, what their impact is going to be. You like to make it really easy, and hats off to your staff, I'm sure, for also helping make sure you have all this at your disposal. But thank you for your leadership in that regard.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, and just really appreciate the time. And maybe we can do it again. And thanks for, yeah, maybe you can join in with the town hall. And Mark Owens is just a fabulous person, and really honored to have him join me. And so let's see what happens. And come see us on the Rogue River, Southern Oregon. And hey, if it's okay, I'll
Yeah,
give my
sure.
email real quick, and people can contact me anytime. I'm going to give my personal email because it's so much simpler. It's just Coach Court, COACH COURT at gmail.com.
I'll just post that here in. Yours is the only one that begins with Coach. So anytime I type that into my email, I find it immediately. And so, reach out, let Representative Boyce know what you think, and frankly, share with him some of the stories that he can share to help fellow legislators, including ones on the other side of the aisle, understand even more the importance of better policies and a better direction for the state. But again, thanks for joining. And District 1, I posted a link to your website as well, your state legislative website, and folks can go there and get more information about you and your district and stay up with the news and sign up for your newsletter, which I highly recommend.
Hey, this has been great fun, Kevin. And once again, just really appreciate it. Let's
Sounds great.
Again soon.
Representative Court Boyce, folks. And we'll be back tomorrow night with the next episode of The Captive Audience. Sonny and Don will be back. And we really appreciate everyone following us. Please share the show with everyone you can. They need to hear this. There's some great leaders like Representative Boyce fighting for us in Salem. And I know that they'll appreciate all the information he shares on a regular basis, especially once we get to fire season. There's nobody who does it better. Anyway, thanks everyone, and have a great night.